guys, Robert here, and welcome to episode 20 of Monthly Submission Rankings, where I rank tracks that you submit to me every single month. And for this episode, I'm going to be ranking songs that you would recommend to people for the third time. Well, we did it. 20 episodes of MSR. Can you believe that? And it's only been like over a year since we started this whole thing. Like I said previously, very fun and special milestones comes with very fun and special episodes like this one, where I'm going to be doing the third installment of this whole recommended song shtick that you guys enjoy a whole lot. Hell, you guys really love these kinds of episodes so much that we ended up getting 25 submissions for this episode, which is almost the same amount of songs as episodes 1 and 10, which were also on recommended songs. And man, I gotta say, the roster of songs this time around is absolutely stacked. Except for maybe 2 or 3 songs here, this has to be, on average, the best batch of tracks we have received yet. You guys absolutely chose these songs. You really truly did. And I cannot wait to talk about all 25 tracks in this video. Also, the fact that there are no disqualifications this time makes this even better because, well, it's recommended songs. The concept was fairly simple. Submitting any song you like. So now, on to the usual disclaimers that this ranking is completely subjective, this is all my opinion, and it's really based on how much I enjoyed these submissions as a whole. Please don't take this super seriously, because at the end of the day, we're all here to have a jolly good time. That's really all that matters, alright? Also, this ranking is not final, and it may be subject to change depending on my mood. If you have any feedback for the series, whether it be positive or negative in a constructive way, feel free to leave it down in the comments. So yeah, I have nothing much to say. Now without any further ado, this is Monthly Submission Rankings, Episode 20, Recommended Songs 3. Enjoy! Number 25, Justin 7, Music the Best 3. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I have nothing much to say about this one. This isn't really anything special at all. I wanted to like it more than I do because the bombast is certainly there with those epic sounding strings that do give off Pirates of the Caribbean vibes. But unfortunately, the poor production and mixing combined with the fact that it goes on for 4.5 minutes and yet it feels really repetitive and tedious without changing a thing or two kind of ruins this for me. I do get the appeal though, as I could definitely imagine this being used for sporting events or for some random YouTube videos that do use royalty-free music. And this song is in fact royalty-free, but I don't have any urge to return to this outside of the listens I gave to it in preparation for this video. Pretty mid, honestly. Next. Number 24, Nu Mai, Tin Như Tam Nong. This was originally going to be the bottom pick here because the Vietnamese songs that get sent to me on occasion don't really have the best track record, but thankfully this has barely grown on me enough to the point where it's just above Music the Best 3. That said, even after all that, it's still a pretty meh track to me. My main gripe with this one is that it's just boring. Even though the instruments sound nice, especially the pianos, and Nu Mai delivers a pretty nice vocal performance, the whole song itself does kind of share the same problems with the last track I talked about, in that there's not a whole lot of progression going on over the course of its length, and the production and mixing isn't really up to par either. Overall, even though it does get some points for having some really nice elements that made this song grow on me a bit, I'm sure there are other tracks like this that pull off the style of balladry and do it consistently better. Number 23, Taio Cruz, Dynamite. Oh look, a big one, and this is probably going to be my first big hot take in this video because this track isn't really that good. I actually used to like it as a little kid back when it came out in 2010, but this song has actually significantly cooled on me over the years, sadly. And the reason behind that is because it shares one problem I have with the last 2 tracks I talked about. The production hasn't really held up on this one either. The reason why it's above the last 2 tracks though is because 1, nostalgia factor, and 2, I got the appeal of this one more than the last 2 as well. Hell, I'll even admit, Taio Cruz's presence is undeniable, and that chorus still kinda goes hard. But honestly, I prefer his other hit Break My Heart over this. At least the production on there is debatably better in my opinion, so that track has gotten way more replay value out of me as a result, but yeah. Dynamite is just meh. Nothing much to say. Number 22, Beyonce, Sing a Song. Well, I can't believe I'm living in a timeline where I'm putting a song from a Nick Jr. show above one of the biggest hits of 2010, but here we are. Believe it or not, this is where we start to get to the more decent stuff, by the way. I'm not even joking. While Wubbzleb is a show I don't really watch at all nowadays because I'm so far out of my demographic for it, but I actually don't mind this song in particular, like, at all. Some pros I can give this song to are that it's kind of memorable, it has this upbeat vibe going for it all the way through, and Beyonce's charisma and energy is pretty much appreciated. For the cons, I don't really have that much of an urge to return to it simply because it's from a show that, again, is not really my thing nowadays, and she does have better songs than this like Irreplaceable, Listen, Halo, Sweet Dreams, Break My Soul, Cuff It, and lots more, but other than that, this song is actually fine. I still can't believe I'm actually saying this. And if you thought this was the only song from a kid's show that I'd be talking about in this video, you are wrong, because next up is number 21, The Wiggles, Hot Potato. If you thought me talking about a Nick Jr. song was surreal enough, look no further than discussion on The Wiggles this time around, let alone putting them above Beyonce of all people. Now that's a crazy timeline to be living in. For real though, this song is decent. No, I am not messing around. I kind of have a soft spot for this iconic lineup of The Wiggles shown here, and this is the best song they've put out to date? Maybe? You know what, maybe it is. I can't say this song is not catchy at all. After all, I have hot potato, cold spaghetti, and mashed banana temporarily live rent-free in my head after listening to this. With that being said, the sound effect that they make at certain points of the song can get on Elvis's what does the fox say's levels of annoying when I'm not in the right mood. And on top of that, I have no urge to listen to this again outside of this video because children's music groups aren't my thing, but much like the last song, it's fine whenever I do hear it. I don't think it's that inherently bad, so moving on. Number 20, The Rolling Stones, Midnight Rambler. The oldest song that was sent to me, but to be honest, this song's not bad. It's actually pretty nice. Apparently the lyrics of the song loosely detail the story of Albert DeSalvo, who was eventually known as the Boston Strangler, and I won't be getting into that stuff because, yeah, sensitive topics. But when it comes to the song itself, I think the Rolling Stones did a pretty decent job with this. I really like the dynamics of the song, as well as the tempo shifts and the soft-sounding electric guitars towards the 4-minute mark that make the song stand out in its own right. My only big misgiving with it is that I can drag its spots, so there could be times where I'm a bit bored of its sound, including the parts with just the guitars. But thankfully things do pick back up at the 5:33 mark, and the song ends in a fairly satisfying way, especially the nice little flute towards the end. Overall, all this averages out to a pretty decent to good song. Cool stuff. Number 19, Infected Mushroom, Blue Swan 5. Oh look, it's the Israeli electronic music duo themselves. Cool to see them be featured in one of my videos again. Infected Mushroom, along with Asterix, are currently my favorite artists in psytrance at the moment, one of many subgenres of EDM. If you want the best examples of that, then I suggest checking out their albums The Gathering, Vicious Delicious, and Army of Mushrooms. They are all equally awesome. Also, shout out to IM25 as it almost made my 2022 year-end list. But back on topic, even though this particular track isn't the absolute best one they've done or anything, I think this is still pretty cool. While the production isn't perfect, there are some elements to like about this track that more or less make up for it. I like the way this track opens up with these African-sounding instruments before going into a bit of a left turn with some really neat rock elements reminiscent of some of the rock stuff they did on Vicious Delicious. Other parts of the track I really like include the squelchy yet funky lead synth, the really neat tempo change that again makes the song more unique, and the glockenspiel sounding melodies at the 5:26 mark that sound really nice too. If I had one minor complaint with it, it's that my attention can trail off a bit at times, and I've heard tracks that utilize this near 9-minute length better, more on that later, but otherwise, this song's pretty nice. Now we have made it to this point on the list where I can say this is the good stuff, starting with number 18, Badfinger, BB Blue. Yeah, remember when I said that putting Dynamite at number 23 was the first big hot take here? Well, this song not even making it to the top half of this list might as well be the next big hot take because I've heard quite a few great things about BB Blue, at least according to the comments of one of my community posts that is. But make no mistake, I think this track is really, really good. This song, written solely by lead singer Pete Ham, is about Dixie Armstrong, a woman he dated during Badfinger's last tour in the US. However, Ham ended his relationship with her, possibly due to Armstrong's lack of interest in working with the band. Do I think this has the greatest tune known to man? No. But with the help of all that context, I think this is a well-written song that could grow on me more with time. It's clearly evident in the first verse of the song that Ham has embraced the fact that his chances of being with her are slim to none because she gave up on believing that he would come back for her. The reason why I think this song can grow on me in the future is because I can see how this situation relates to other people. Ending a relationship with someone because they no longer thought you were going to be there for them has gotta sting. All in all, even though there are better songs on this list in my estimation from an instrumental standpoint, I think there is a certain power that can be found in the lyrics, and that's something totally respectable. I can see why Breaking Bad made this song popular again. Number 17, Death, Voice of the Soul. From pop rock, we transition on over to death metal, and speaking of death metal, I don't typically listen to a lot of bands in this style, but I have listened to quite a few, and Death is one of them. To be frank, I've only listened to a few of their songs, including this one, which I've heard for the first time while making this video. This is not just the only instrumental off of their 7th and final album, The Sound of Perseverance, but this is also arguably the most simplistic track on this list as well, but damn, what a solid instrumental regardless. It may be only 3 minutes long with nothing much going on aside from 2 layers of guitars, one of them being an acoustic guitar and the other being an electric guitar, but it does leave an impression on me despite that. The way the 2 guitars contrast with each other is pretty clever, and to me, every ounce of emotion and pain that they pour into this track can be found throughout its length. And that guitar band at the 3:05 mark is just the icing on the cake. I don't have many things to say about it, mainly thanks to its sheer simplicity, but I can see why people adore this one. Again, really solid stuff. Number 16, Kaiser Chiefs. Every Day I Love You Less and Less. I think it's pretty funny how the name of this band is similar to the name of the person who submitted this song to me, but yeah, this one slaps. This song, described by lead singer Ricky Wilson as a hate ballad, is quite the banger when it comes to new wave songs. I knew I was ready for something super cool the moment I heard that analog synth bass followed by some guitars, and then everything really gets going with the drums shorting in shortly after, and then Wilson comes in like, every day I love you less and less, like, damn, it's so catchy. In fact, everything about this song is catchy. The lyrics may not be anything too deep, in fact, they can get kind of stupid, but this is honestly the fun kind of stupid, you know? The kind that just makes me want to go crazy at a local party, which is what I really like in a song like this. It definitely does get your blood pumping, I'll say that, but what makes the song even more fun is its progression. Especially the oohs and nah-nahs during the chorus and the synth solo at the 2:25 mark that make the song more enjoyable than it is. This is overall a really good to great song that puts a smile on my face the more I hear it. I'm gonna be returning to this one more. Number 15, BTS Butter. Well, looks like K-pop makes a big return to the series, and while this genre of music isn't usually my cup of tea, I've been returning to the song quite a bit recently. I think the song is pretty damn good to great. This might genuinely be BTS's best song to date. I could just point to the bouncy and groovy pop production on this thing, which is one thing I really like about this song. Another thing I enjoy about the song is the fun and catchy lyrics, and all 7 members of the group have enough personality and charisma to really sell them. Not to mention that these lyrics really do go along with this sort of production, hence why many people thought it was in contention for Song of the Summer at one point. That's good and all, but the reason why it's higher than expected on this list is because of that brilliant rap verse towards the end. That alone just allowed the song to have that extra bit of variety, which is what makes the song cooler than it already is. But yeah, this is K-pop at its very finest for me, and the hype surrounding this track is well deserved. Still gonna be returning to this one. Number 14, Osamu Sato, Frozen Frogs. From South Korea, we travel east to Japan to talk about digital artist, composer, and photographer Osamu Sato, and his track Frozen Frogs, which appeared on his 1994 album Transmigration. I won't lie, this is my first time ever listening to music from this guy, but man, I gotta say, I think this is a great starting point. To me, this is kind of like an upgraded version of what Orbital delivered on their debut album 3 years prior. Things do start a little weird with those haunting vocals at the beginning, but this track really starts to get going with those nice sounding arpeggiated synths before contrasting well with a pretty neat bass line at the 106 mark. Other aspects of the song I really love that make this track stand out from the crowd include the tribal sounding percussion, reverse snippets of this track's drum loop in some parts, the cosmic sounding synth pads, that vocal sample that kind of sounds like it was recorded by an Indian singer, and that brilliant acidy bass line that goes absolutely hard at the 437 mark. Got nothing else to add, but this track's great nonetheless, and I recommend giving this a whirl. Number 13, Fela, Expensive Shit. Well, this caught me off guard, but in a good way. Also, yeah, I have censored the majority of this album cover because the last thing I want is to accidentally violate YouTube's community guidelines again, but back on topic. I think this is a great change of pace for this series. I have never covered anything Afrobeat related before, but I'm convinced that this is one of the best demonstrations of what this genre can do. According to the submitter, this song is, quote, about Fela being planted with a joint by crooked cops so he had to take a shit to prove his innocence, end quote. Okay. Weird story aside, I think this track is great. It may be 13 minutes long, one of the longest songs out of this batch, but there is something so mesmerizing about it that catches my attention all the way through. Of course, you got the African sounding percussion because this is Afrobeat we're talking about, but I love the funk and jazz elements that get thrown into this so that it has this unique flair that doesn't make this song stick out like a sore thumb. I also particularly love the inclusion of a piano around 9 minutes in because, yeah, I'm a sucker for pianos. But yeah, I think the song is really great. That does well being a starting point for discussion on not only the Nigerian musician and political activist himself, but also on this genre that isn't typically the main thing I listen to. Great stuff. Also, rest in peace, Fela Kuti. Now we have reached the official halfway mark of this list, and trust me, things are only gonna go up from here. And what a better way to start the halfway point than with number 12, David Glenn Isley, Sweet Victory. And here we have an iconic one. Many of you know this one for being featured in SpongeBob SquarePants, specifically in the episode Band Geeks, my favorite SpongeBob episode, by the way. I will forever have a soft spot for the way the song was implemented in that episode because of that epic orchestral intro, but the full 3-minute version is more fleshed out, so for that reason, I actually like that version more. But man, this is still such an anthem even out of context. I love the way this track begins with these cool electric piano chords, just to let you know that you're in for something great. And of course, we can't forget the impeccable rock instrumentation, David's incredible singing, and the chorus that will never not be iconic. Furthermore, not only does it have a nicely integrated guitar solo thrown in there for good measure to boot, but that build up into the final chorus at the 3 or 4 mark is brilliant too. Just the way the drum roll and the final chorus work off each other proves that this song has incredible build-ups and payoffs at its disposal. Overall, this song is great. It's just as great now as it was back when I first heard it as a kid, and more importantly, as implied by the title, this is one hell of a victory song that will continue to be remembered for many more years to come. Such a shame this song was unfairly cut off during the 2019 Super Bowl halftime show though. Number 11. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, The Dripping Tap. Oh look, it's that prolific rock band from the land down under. Good to see these guys be featured here as well. And yeah, I'm not lying when I say that these guys are very, very prolific. These guys have only been around for 13 years, and so far they have released 24 studio albums. Yes, 24. You can tell right from the get-go that the discography can get a bit intimidating, and I would also be lying if I said that I have listened to everything these guys have put out. But my first exposure to these guys was just back in 2022. You know, the year where they released 5 albums in a year. And I really enjoyed Ice, Death, Planets, Lungs, Mushrooms, and Lava a lot to the point where I included it on my 2022 year-end list, where it was pretty close to cracking the top 20. I also really enjoyed their latest album that came out 2 months ago, Petrodragonic Apocalypse, which is currently on my 2023 year-end list as of writing. But now we travel back in time to April 2022 when Omnium Gatherum was released, and The Dripping Tap begins the whole album. And after listening to it for the first time, I can pretty much confirm that this is great. It may be 18 minutes, the longest song that I'm going to be covering in this episode by far, but I'd say its length is pretty much justified and well utilized. I really love the progression on this one, as it starts all slow and mellow in the beginning. It almost sounds lo-fi-ish. And then the whole vibe of this song gets flipped upside down when all of a sudden it gets significantly more upbeat and fast in tempo over a minute in. Much like the last track, I love the instrumentation on this one, and the guitar riffs at the 5:23 mark are just plain amazing. Lastly, the vocals on here are great, especially from Stu McKenzie, and the lyrics are fun and catchy, especially at the 11:55 mark where Stu goes, "Drip, drip from the tap, don't slip." And yeah, this song is really fun to listen to as a whole, and it stays fun without overstaying its welcome either, despite its 18-minute length. Really great stuff, one of my favorites from the band to date. Number 10, El Juevo Flight. And now we start the top 10 off with Swedish music producer Nicholas Åkerblad, aka El Juevo. Not only does he have 6 studio albums to his name according to Wikipedia, but he is also apparently known for creating the cover art for the 2012 video game Hotline Miami and his 2015 sequel Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number. Not to mention that he has even created soundtracks for several video games on top of it. But his contributions to video games isn't what we're actually talking about. Instead, we are talking about Flight, the 17-minute closing track off of his 2012 EP, Where You Must Rest Your Weary Bones. Much like Osamu Sato from earlier, I've never listened to his music up until this point, and as you can tell from where I placed this track on the list, I think this is absolutely great. I really love the melodies on here, and they sound very heartfelt and innocent towards the beginning. The beat that comes in 2.5 minutes in is also pretty neat, and contrasts well with said melodies, and also with some metallic percussion that later follows it, which also sounds really cool too. It honestly feels like it should be in a video game because I can definitely get those vibes from this track alone. Also, even though the abrasive sounding drum breaks that begin around 13 minutes in sound cool as well, the one minor thing about this track that I don't like is the long period of silence in between the main bulk of the track and the part with the drum breaks. It kind of makes for an inconvenient listen, and it would probably go a bit higher than number 10 if that silent part was excluded. But otherwise, I think this is a damn near excellent track that more or less convinces me to go check out more of his stuff. Number 9, Sebastian, Arabest. Next we move on to fresh producer Sebastian, who has actually produced for quite a few notable artists, including Frank Ocean, which is actually pretty cool. But man, talk about a groovy song. In fact, this might be the grooviest song I've received for this episode by a long shot. I don't have a whole lot of things to say about this track because of its fairly short 3-minute length, but I think this cut from his 2011 album Total does pack quite a punch during that span of time. First off, I think the beat is sick and sounds so driving and purposeful. And second, I love the way the sample is used, and it goes along brilliantly with not only the beat, but also with some electric guitars to give it more of an 80s vibe. Other things I like about this track include the way the production was filtered in some parts, as well as that one section of the 146 mark with those electric pianos that give this track even more personality. I especially like the way it ends with this reverb effect at the 311 Mark II. This whole track to me is kind of like a slower yet funkier and groovier version of the song Baby I'm Yours by Breakbot, which is absolutely a big compliment. I don't have anything else to comment on other than this track is seriously dope. Even though it can be a little repetitive sometimes, it's really just a very small nitpick, as this is one of those cases where repetitiveness works in its favor. No doubt in my mind, this is going to be on repeat on my end. Check it out. Number 8. Vangelis, Chariots of Fire. If you thought Sweet Victory was such an iconic track, look no further than Chariots of Fire, a track from a legendary 70s synth pioneer that appeared on the film of the same name released in 1981. There's a reason why it's been covered by countless performers and musicians, and it has been used in various forms of media including films, television programs, and sporting events. And that's because this track is excellent. The instrumentation as a whole is beyond beautiful and memorable for all the right reasons. From the opening bass line, to the synth pads, to the unforgettable piano melody, to the glockenspiels, to the trumpets, everything about it, including the way the melodies are constructed, just works out so smoothly. Even though there's not a ton for me to say about this track, the amount of elements that go into it just make it feel so grand in every way. It makes me feel like I'm actually riding a chariot so high up in the air and I see a beautiful, illustrious landscape down below. Overall, like I said before, this track is iconic. But at the same time, this is truly a phenomenal track, and it's without question one of Vangelis' best ever tracks. R.I.P. Vangelis. Number 7. Forecast, Whispering Rain. And now we move on to the biggest track when it comes to the amount of names involved. This track, which was created in just 72 hours, appeared on the compilation album Sleepover 4, which was released on the record label Silken Wood. This track was also made by music producer Klain in collaboration with 5 other fellow producers, which are Fehu, Clockwork Red aka Kyo Dana, Skippe, Viplex, and Zach Fox, under the collective known as Forecast. I mean, I was expecting this to be good simply because of how many people worked on this track, but holy moly, this track is utterly fantastic. The impeccably large and vast atmosphere is one thing, but this track's flow and cohesion is on another fucking level. Just the way it starts with those alluring synths and vocoders, it lets you know you're in for something special. That first drop with that really dope wobbly bass as well as other aspects of this track that make it kind of color bass-ish is just amazing enough. But absolutely nothing prepared me for what I was about to get into next. After the first drop, there's this cute little guitar melody before more ambient synth passages start to fade in. But then at the 218 mark, it turns into this kind of like IDM infused with UK garage kind of track. And at that point, I was losing my shit at how good this really is. Just the way these 6 producers executed that. Chef's kiss. And the melodies in this particular part are absolutely gorgeous too. I also love how around 20 or so seconds after that, it turns into more of a housey kind of track, which adds to this track's incredible and dynamic atmosphere. And then at the 315 mark, we slowly go back to how things were at the first drop, except the IDM influence are sort of front and center this time around. And then it ends with some more ambient pads contrasting well with some birds chirping. Yeah, that was quite a lot to cover here, but man, I am so impressed with this one. Everything from its insane depth to its cohesion to how every single little detail works off each other, it really makes for 5 convivial minutes that zip by quick. And it's pretty clear that all the effort that went into this thing really paid off. Amazing stuff. Number 6. Porter Robinson, Language. Ah yes, Porter Robinson. He's a producer who's had quite the progression over the past decade as a mainstream EDM producer. From projects like 2011 Spitfire EP that focused on his electro house, complexo, and dubstep tendencies, to his 2 midnight studio albums, 2014's Whirls and 2021's Nurture, which focused on more chillwave, electropop, ambient synthpop, and even shoegaze approaches, which are all sounds that he felt were true to himself. If you want arguably the best example of his pre-World sound though, then I recommend checking out this 2012 non-album single that I'm going to be talking about right now, Language, which, think about it now, it kind of does share a bit of similarities with Deadmau5's The Belt, but that's a story for another day. On the topic of this track, however, this is 100% fantastic. It's one of his most praised and well-known tracks ever, and for a good reason. The progressive house production is incredible, the pianos and synths are gorgeous, the orchestral strings and the uncredited vocals from Heather Brown, the second build-up, are also alluring and fit well with this sort of production. And more importantly, the build-ups themselves, as well as the drops that pay them off, are some of the best I've ever heard, and not just all of EDM, but in all of electronic music in general. Overall, this track is still amazing, and it still holds up as one of his best even over 11 years after its release. Phenomenal stuff for sure. Number 5. Clipping. Pain Every Day. Now it's time for this channel's first ever coverage on this American experimental hip-hop trio from Los Angeles, California, who are well known for their uniquely abrasive and industrial styles of that genre. And they have been focusing on making music along the lines of horrorcore since 2019 with the releases of There Existed an Addiction to Blood from that same year, and this one, Visions of Bodies Being Burned, from the following year in 2020. I listened to the latter in full recently, and I really loved it through and through. It honestly would make my year-end list for 2020 if I actually made one for that year. If you want an example of why I enjoyed that album a lot, then Pain Every Day, track number 9 from that album, as well as the third and final pre-album single for that project, is certainly one of them. I think this track is incredible. Of course, you have the lyrics that, once you look at them, it makes you go, yeah, this is surely a horrorcore song, but the production is so intricate, the overall atmosphere of this track is outstanding, their rapping is top-notch, it flows really well, and the way they used 7/4 time on this is brilliant too. It kind of reminds me of some of the darker tracks Venetian Snares has made, albeit a bit more low-key with some rapping on top, while still keeping its downright abrasiveness. While we're on the topic of dark though, this might very well be the darkest track on this list. But there's something about the memorability of some of the lyrics that make this, from my perspective, one of the most accessible songs that I've heard done in this style, despite its dark atmosphere and transgressive lyrics. However, the reason why this track has secured a spot in my top 5 is because of this part of the 2:49 mark where the chopped up breaks go absolutely off. Everything about this track is already amazing enough, from the sampling to the percussion to even the dark and foreboding path to go up against the whole production super well. But that one part is what makes this track reach a level that very few hip-hop tracks can. This song's awesome all around. Go give this a spin. Number 4. Coldplay, Viva La Vida. Well, this is technically the 5th time I'm going to be talking about Coldplay in this series. First time in 11 months, by the way. Although this time it's one of their biggest hits that appeared on their 2008 album Viva La Vida or Death and All His Friends as its first post-album single. This was the most difficult track for me to place in the ranking by far, but eventually I decided that the number 4 spot would suffice. Even though it just missed out on the top 3, it's not going to stop me from saying that this is one of, if not my absolute favorite Coldplay song. The things I love about the song include the iconic string section loop, because of course, Chris Martin's passionate vocals, the choir parts, especially at the end, and just the overall bombastic nature of this song. The lyrics are the cherry on top, as the song essentially tells the story of a monarch who's lost his kingdom, and the lyrics themselves contain various historical and Christian references, which is why the song is also seen as a narrative on the French Revolution. To me, this song is better in context of the album it's from, because Viva La Vida or Death and All His Friends is about love, life, death, and war. And if there's one song that does a great job of defining what that album's all about, it would be this one. I don't think much needs to be said here, because this is one of their most transcendental songs ever, and it deserved all the success it has gotten over the past 15 years. Love this. Number 3. Mike Oldfield, Sentinel. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes and gals, and non-binary pals, we have now finally made it to my top 3. The podium picks. The absolute cream of the crop. And what a better way to kick off this long-awaited part of the list than by talking about this masterpiece of a track from British retired musician Mike Oldfield, who received unexpected critical and commercial success for his debut album from 1973, Tubular Bells. Funnily enough, the song that I'll be talking about is not from that album, but rather from the sequel to Tubular Bells that came out 19 years later in 1992, Tubular Bells 2. Sentinel opens up the entire album, and god damn what an opener. From start to finish, this track is a journey and a half. I love the way this track starts with some beautiful piano playing before transitioning to essentially the main melody from Tubular Bells 34 seconds in, alongside some whispery vocals and some paths that kind of sound like a choir. I also really do appreciate the guitars and basses being thrown into this just to give it more personality and life as well. Other elements that get added to the melody that I love include some synths, beautiful female lead vocals, and that part at the 4 or 5 mark where the vocals go, oh, okay, and then more indecipherable vocals join in shortly after. I also think the parts where the keys and interchanges are ingenious too, and the guitar melody at the 4:48 mark, the staccato string section contrasting with it, the piano playing going up against the glockenspiel melody layered up an octave at the 5:28 mark, the edgy electric guitars at the 6-minute mark, and the Christmassy chime-like bell synths at the 6:31 mark are very nice touches too. I think it's also awesome how he manages to end the song by just simply letting it slowly decrescendo to the point where it's only left with just piano and strings. I just really love how majestic this track sounds. The instrumentation was spot on, every single little detail feels so important to the overall atmosphere it's going for, and it's just the perfect track all around. Check it out. Number 2. This Will Destroy You, Powdered Hand. You know, it's a rarity these days that I get a chance to talk about this American avant rock band. In fact, it's kind of a similar story with Coldplay from earlier, except this time the band only appeared in MSR 3 times. Which is a shame since I really thought the Mighty Rio Grande from episode 4 was excellent, and Quiet from episode 9 is great too. And big shocker, because Powdered Hand is outstanding. Actually, this might even surpass the Mighty Rio Grande as my favorite track from them so far, because holy shit is this powerful or what. I legit nearly teared up at the beauty of it, that's how palpable it is. Despite being released in 2011 as the closing track off of their third album, Tunnel Blanket, this is one of the best ambient tracks I've heard in recent memory. I think it's really safe to say that the ambient synth passages throughout this track are very alluring, and these pads get noticeably powerful as the track progresses, especially at the 358 mark. Also, the fact that there are barely any drums playing in the background is ingenious, because it proves to me that even if this track kind of sounds scant when it comes to the amount of things going into it, it can still have some emotional weight and depth behind it too. And the vocal samples that happen around 3 minutes in and also at the 6:02 mark really do help this one a remarkable amount. I'd say there are very few ambient tracks that have this huge scope in production along with a variety of different emotions being poured into it. And I'm happy to say that this is one of them. It's almost like Biosphere's Substrata level of awesome. I really hope I do get a chance to listen to more of their stuff outside of this one, the Mighty Rio Grande, and Quiet, because this right here is a masterwork of art in general that I wholeheartedly enjoy. And finally, number 1, Mew Comforting Sounds. Okay, I am not mind blown by this track. That's completely an understatement, okay? I am amazed, just completely gobsmacked by the sound of this track. This is, without any exaggeration, one of the best songs I have ever heard in my entire life, and no, I do not make that statement lightly. It does have one thing in common with the last track I talked about, except this one is the closing track from Mew's third album, Frangers, from 2003, but sweet Mario on a pogo stick, this works extremely well as a closer, Jesus Christ. Before we get to why I adore this track so much, let me just start with the lyrics themselves, which are very well written and engaging to me. In the first verse, singer Jonas Bier is constantly overthinking about the relationship he has with someone, while also worrying about the fact that it can't last forever. The last 2 lines of that verse, nothing is pure anymore but solitude, really do cut through, because nothing is all sunshine and rainbows once the quest into the real world begins, and you can no longer be able to experience that naive, childlike wonder you once had before. In the second verse, he feels like all of this is his fault, as he only focuses on one part of the picture as implied by the sensing you through a lens line. And finally, in the third verse of the song, he admits that he's sinned like everybody has, and he also talks about recalling mistakes that everyone makes in their teenage years, realizing that things nowadays have become more serious as time goes on. The last 4 lines of that verse are, in my opinion, the most meaningful lines in the entire song. And now all the good kids are messing up essentially makes the song go full circle in a lyrical sense, as the moral of the song is that good intentions aren't good enough if your actions don't back them. Nobody has gained or accomplished anything is the ultimate comprehension that nothing really matters at the end. These lyrics may only last around half of the song, but that's only, well, half of the reasons why I adore it so much. The main reason why that's the case is because of, well, you guessed it, the song's dynamics. I've said that for quite a few songs here, but this has probably one of the best usage of dynamics ever. For the first half of the song, it all starts tender and quiet with those very lush guitars, and then it keeps getting layered on as it progresses, along with some really neat orchestration to boot. And then at the 421 mark, it starts to keep on building up until it, in a way, essentially collapses into itself. Just when you think this song is on the edge of breaking down, the instrumentation becomes more large, grand, almost seemingly immeasurable, until finally at the 8:23 mark, all that energy that has been built up until this point starts to be released in such a way where it's become overwhelming. What I love about Humanity is their ability to create songs that immediately resonate with people on first listen, and this is an example of that. I am really just awestruck that 20 years ago, one band decided to make a song so powerful, it can shake entire planets. In astronomy, there's this hypothetical theory about the ultimate fate of the universe called the Big Rip, where the universe has expanded so much where all matter, living things, and even atoms and space-time itself get torn apart at the seams. To me, it's like that, but in song form. And I just love songs where you can make some weird and out-of-the-box analogies like that. And the fact that this was even the last song that was submitted to me for this episode, holy shit, dude. That combined with the song's tangible instrumentation and meaningful lyrical content makes this song be my number 1 for this list. And giving it any less than that, at least out of this batch anyway would not be giving this enough justice. Hell, anything I said about the song might as well not give it enough justice either, because this song is so beyond description, but in the best way. Overall, this is a 10 out of 10 song for me, and again, was an easy choice for my favorite song in this video. One of my favorite songs of all time. Absolutely adore this. And that was my ranking proper. Thanks to everyone who has submitted, it is greatly appreciated, and like I said at the very beginning of this video, this is one of, if not the best batch of tracks in all of MSR, period. Outside of only 3 songs here, there's not one song here that I generally found to be bad in any way. Even Sing a Song and Hot Potato weren't bad, just okay and inoffensive. Like I said earlier in the video, the good stuff started from number 18 onwards, and the highs on this list are seriously astronomically high. Especially my top 3, and boy did I have so much to say about Comforting Sounds compared to every other song here. But yeah, other than that, fantastic job everyone. Let's keep the excellent quality going. The next episode, episode 21, will be on your favorite album openers. The link to the form for MSR 21 will be in the description down below and also in the pinned comments as per usual. And the form will be closing on Monday, September 4th, 2023 at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. But yeah, I'm pretty much looking forward to seeing how many people submit to this, because I think this is a brand new idea that has never come to life for the series before. And some of my favorite tracks of all time really do a great job of being tone setters for what certain albums are all about. So yeah, submit to the form if you're interested. Links in the description pinned comments. But yeah, we've made it to the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a like, share this one with your friends if you want to, and leave a comment down below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe as we're on the road to 9,000 subscribers. That's pretty much it, guys. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye, guys.